Whether you're used to cruising cats or coming to them for the first time, the bottom line is that they're very different to monohulls. But how? And why does it matter? We've come to Tortola in the British Virgin Islands, one of the centres for catamaran cruising, where we've been lent a Moorings 4800 and we're joined by renowned multi-hull designer Nigel Irons. First of our new series on multi-hulls, we take a look at what the issues are when it comes to handling a cruising cat and how to get away with the minimum of fuss. Well, Nigel, we're on board the boat and I have to say it's quite an intimidating sight. It's a big wide boat, we're high up and the fairway looks very narrow out there. I mean, how do we get out?
I know it is a bit daunting, but actually it's probably not quite as bad as it looks. One of the things we have on a catamaran, which is really useful, is that the engines, obviously there are two of them and they're well spread, so that you can turn the boat around from 360 degrees without it going anywhere. And that's really handy when we're trying to do a slow manoeuvre out of here, because obviously rudders only work when the boat's moving forward fast, or faster than that.
And what about the windage? I mean, big topsides we got here, is that going to be a factor?
Probably. I don't know to the extent on this boat that there'll be a problem. We'll be finding that out later on in the day, because it's my first time on this boat, but certainly it's an issue, yeah.
Well, let's go and give it a go.
Let's do that.
So, here you go. You're off. First, resist the temptation to use the wheel. Using the engines will give you plenty of steerage while keeping things simple. Here, Nigel uses reverse thrust on the port engine to turn the boat. Once you're through the turn and have gathered speed, you can steer using the helm. Simple. You look like a pro. But what if your trip starts by having to spring off the dock in a breeze?
So we're just going to make a game plan for pulling away from this dock now, and we've got to prepare things a little bit. The first thing is we're going to need a fender right forward on the bow, because as the stern comes away, the bow is going to go in. We don't want to damage the bow. And then we're going to double up the lines, both the spring line and the breast line, so that we can all be aboard. Then we will pull through, cast off the breast line. Then we'll be just hanging on that one diagonal spring. I shall drive her forward a bit and get the stern off, and then I'll drive right astern. The spring will go slack and we can just pull the end through. So in preparation, we just have to double up the lines first. That's so much prettier because it's pulling horizontally now, which is what it's supposed to be. And if you can just take the end of that back up to the cleat there. Again, I'll make it so so the rope isn't pulling too hard at that time. That's lovely, yeah. You could. So I think the first line to let go is the bow line, really. That shouldn't change much. And then when you're ready, Jonathan, if you let that go and pull it all back on board. Now we're springing back on that. And now you can pull all that in. So that seemed to work okay. You have to make quite bold moves when there's strong wind like that, because there's a moment when we haven't got anything attached. And that seemed to come away nicely without taking up too much room or getting near that mole there.
after leaving the dock for the first time, but before putting sails up, is a good opportunity to get used to the handling and the manoeuvrability of the boat under power. You can check the effect of the windage. You can try manoeuvring astern, both upwind and downwind. Perhaps most useful of all, you can practice turning the boat on the spot using just the engines.
Now, I'm putting a beam onto the wind now. I assume there's no current here. I don't think there is. I'll just stop her right there. Bearing in mind we've got obviously the fixed keels each side, which are resisting the boat being skittering along sideways. I'd say that looks quite good actually. I think it's moving less than I thought it would. If we look down at the water on the windward side, if it's moving at any speed, we can begin to see slight swirls in the water there, but just a little bit there, but looks fairly good. Okay, we just get a feeling for what happens sternboard, going stern first. And we got the wind right on our bow, so we'll stick everything in slow astern. And we just want to see how much the rudders alone without using the engine. I'll just use the engine to start her off, and then the head's blowing off now. I'm putting the helm over to port, but I'm using the starboard engine quite a lot, so at the moment it isn't the rudders that are doing any good, it's the engines. If I want to bring the bow up a bit more, I can go ahead with the port engine like that. That's all back to neutral again now. The boat is moving backwards now. I can actually give her a little bit of way on with the engines, and then stop the engines and see if I can feel whether the rudders are steering her. I'm bit of starboard helm at the moment, see if that corrects her. No, the bow is still being blown off at the moment, so that's probably about the optimum power I can get out of the rudder at the moment, and it's still the bow is blowing off, so the windage is certainly taking over here now. I can cure it, of course, by using the engines. If I take the port one out, put starboard one ahead with that amount of, put the helm the other way, she'll soon come up again. That obviously overrides everything. But I got the feeling then that she was not responding to the helm going astern, but it was largely because there's now 12, 13 knots of wind, and it was catching the bow and blowing the bow off, so you'd probably expect that. So it's not really a fair test in a way, but it does warn you that you are dependent on the engine controls, not the rudder, when there's any wind about. And I'm going astern with the port engine, give a little more revs, and that's making it so we're not really moving forward anymore. Give a bit more power on that, and then I'll go ahead on the, very slow ahead on the other one. And you'll see that by looking at various transits each side of me, I can see that the boat's not going anywhere, and we're just rotating gently. Going forward a little bit now, so I'm going a bit more astern on the port engine. I'm looking at transits out to the side of me now to look for any motion. Pretty well stationary. Now the bow will be picking up some heavy windage now as it goes against the wind there, but it's having no trouble overcoming it. I've only got 1,000 revs on one engine. I'm still not on purpose using the helm because I want to see the engines do it really. I'm struggling a little bit now because of the wind catching the bow and trying to blow it back off downwind again. Our rotation is slowing down now a little bit, but it's getting there. And if I, just to exaggerate, if I give her a bit more power now, I mean, there's no problem. There's bags of reserve there, so that's useful to know. And there we are, back head to wind again, and we're pretty well in the same place. So what can we say? Once again, don't count on the rudders, count on the engines. And it's actually, the windage problem is only a problem in that it's blowing the bow off. But when we were absolutely beam on, she seemed to lie fairly stably like that, and the amount of drift down to leeward was really not much.
arriving into a new and possibly unknown port can present another test of close quarters manoeuvring.
Okay, we've got quite a strong wind coming in right up our stern at the moment, and we're going to come in starboard side too on a pontoon over here, and we've elected to come stern first. That's partly because if we come in bow first, the bow could get blown quite suddenly against the dock, or if we go too far the other way it could be peeled back by the wind and set us in the wrong direction again. So we'd like to come stern first with the boat at this kind of angle in the dock here. We'll see how that works. Okay, we're approaching this pontoon stern first. It's partly because we've got a better view of the stern than we have in the bow. The other thing is there's quite a lot of wind behind us, and I'd be concerned that the bow would get either carried suddenly onto the dock or peel away from it at the wrong minute. So I think stern first is a good option here. Once again, the catamaran thing comes into its own, because although we got all this windage, we got such good control with two widespread engines that it shouldn't be too difficult. Shorten up on that, that's good, yeah. Okay, I'm leaving her just slightly ahead until we get a forward spring on. Catamarans and beaches go together, and we can get in pretty close to anchor, which is a really nice thing with the catamaran. And actually the maneuver of putting the anchor down and lifting it is quite easy, again because of the span of having the two engines, and you can control the orientation of the boat, and you can run backwards in a nice straight line to lay out the chain and eventually snub the anchor in. So that's all very useful really. The only slight problem is that because we're quite far back in the boat where this roller is, this stem head roller as it were, the boat does, the catamaran tends to range around like this as the wind's blowing, hunting to and fro, which is very inconvenient especially if you've got several catamarans together. So you stop that by using a bridle. So artificially you're moving the point of attachment further forward, and if the boat tends to go off to one side, it's pulled on the downhill side is being pulled back by the bridle. So that's the way to go. So we better do it. Okay. Let it roll. So here's the hook that is attached to the bridle, and it's got a long slot in it so we can put it onto the chain like that, and then we hold on to this little recovery line, and Jonathan, you pay out again now here. Okay, that's about it. We're going to approach this buoy. We're going to be picking up the leader on it. We've got, as usual, the great advantage of the two controls with two engines to hold us in position. On the other hand, there's quite a lot of wind. There's 16, 17 knots of wind from the bow. And we have noticed, particularly with this boat, that the bow tends to suddenly be snatched one way or the other by the wind. So it could be a little more difficult than it might seem, actually. The first thing is to get well lined up downwind of it, which is what I'm doing now. You can see it's being pulled to port now, and I'm having to... There's a point where the rudder isn't going to be useful anymore because we're not making any way. But I've got to try and hold a dead head to wind, but it's not easy. There we are, she's going to starboard now, so I have to reverse the controls. I'm not going to bother with the rudder. Doesn't make any difference. I'm looking at Jonathan, who's he's pointing with because I'm not going to be able to see it anymore. So I've got to be guided by his actions on the bow there. Okay. Well, that wasn't too bad, but I think that's the kind of thing where a bit of practice picking up a buoy that whether you intend to pick it up or not, is a good thing. You get some time in on making those calls, and the stronger the wind, the more difficult it is, of course.
They're great on a reach, but upwind, cruising cats are less well known for their good performance. So how do you get the best out of a cat upwind? So tell us about the basics of making a cruising cat go upwind.
Well, I think the first thing to say is don't expect miracles in terms of the angle you're sailing. It won't be as good as a monohull. Keels, centerboards or keels, whatever you call them, are not very efficient. There's a lot of windage, and you've got to keep the boat moving fast as you reasonably can. So don't pinch is the first thing. Probably 5 or 10 degrees less than the equivalent monohull in terms of angle.
Yeah. So if we're sailing at, say, 45 degrees true wind angle on a monohull, you're talking 5-10 degrees more on a monohull.
So. Yeah. That's the way it is.
Right. And how do you get a feel for that sweet spot? How do you know when you got it right? Can you look at the instruments? Can you?
Yeah, I mean, I think circumstances that we're in here, there's no other boats around. Earlier on there was one we were looking at, and when you see another boat, you do start tweaking things and looking for differences. I think you build up a picture over a period of time. You've got to expect to do that and take it all in to allow your instincts to work.
And I guess if you're using a chart plotter and you've got a track on there, that's probably a good way of seeing.
Absolutely great. That's something you can do very easily now. And at the end of the day, if you've made 3 or 4 tacks, particularly in these waters where there's not much in the way of current, you can get a real good feeling for what's happened.
And as far as sail settings are concerned, and say jib cars, and what are the basics? How can you sort of help improve the situation?
Trial and error. I think trial and error. Don't oversheath. That's all. And very often, I think it's the same on other boats as well. If you try something, sometimes the unexpected works quite well. Like you start opening out the top of the sail in a way that seems unrealistic, and the boat's going faster. So believe what you see.
Right. Good. We'll try a bit of that.
Just like any other boat, it's important to set the blocks of the headsail sheet in the right position. As you can see it now, it's clearly far too far forward. The leech of the sail is too tight, and there's this great big bag on the foot. So we'll adjust it, and you'll see immediately that it improves the look of the thing, and obviously the efficiency as well. So you can see now we've moved the car quite a long way aft, and the jib looks a lot happier, a bit more closed on the foot and more open on the leech. generally looks better. We'll see if it results in an improved performance. It's the kind of thing you can never take for granted. You've got to tweak it and see how it works.
Balance, Nigel, fore and aft, going upwind. I mean, we've got 21, 22 knots of breeze, apparent wind here, and I've got quite a lot of weather helm on.
Yeah.
And more than I'd expect, to be honest, going upwind.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess it's all in the main sheet, and it's the last little bit that really counts. If I give you a bit here now, you'll see it lighten up a lot.
So you're going to ease off a little bit, just
yeah.
I can feel the difference straight away, actually.
Yeah.
We had about 8 or 10 degrees rudder angle on, actually, just to try and keep the boat in a straight line. And now you've only eased it a few feet, but we're right down to just a couple of degrees. It's dead easy. The other thing I've noticed is that if you undersheet the jib, so if we ease the jib off just a little bit, then that weather helm comes back on really, really quickly.
That's about 6 inches.
Okay, yeah, I'm already starting to get the helm coming on now, so as that jib is eased out and it's not really set properly, the luff's blowing back a little bit. I can feel it. If you could just ease a little bit more, Nigel, let's see what happens on the helm there. Okay, so the boat's slowing down and I'm having to put in more helm. The steering to leeward, try and keep the boat.
Yeah.
And I guess the danger is if we were to allow the speed to bleed right off, we'd end up stalling out.
The trouble is as well, it's a huge amount of drag. The rudders are not very efficient. So to get for a certain amount of lift, you either have a long, high aspect rudder at a very small angle, which is efficient, or a rather short, clubby one, which is rather undersized. And then to get the same amount of power in to correct the helm, you've got a big rudder angle on, and obviously it's like flaps down, loads of power,
and I guess that's
loads of drag.
And that is the problem we've got, isn't it? Because it's a shallow draft boat, so it's
Indeed.
shallow rudder side. Like most modern cruisers with furling headsails, I guess it's a lot more convenient just to pull out the headsail and motor sail. But is that the case with a multi-hull? Can you do the same thing?
Yeah, there's no reason why it'd be any different, really. I mean, the object is obviously to save a bit of fuel, maybe go a little faster, and if there's any sea around, it can obviously just help make that a bit smoother, that's all. But so at the moment we're doing just under 6 knots, or thereabouts, about just over, 1650 revs on the engines, and we'll just see what happens to if we get it out. Okay, let's go then, let's unroll.
Well, we've pulled the headsail out now, Nigel, and I mean that's quite a difference, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of settling down to, gosh, oh wow, up to 8 knots. There is a little more wind now, but the apparent's built a little bit, but I think as it's happened, I think there's a bit more wind as well. But still, 8 knots compared to 6.5, that's worth having, isn't it?
Yeah. And the motion feels a lot better.
Feels fine, yeah, it feels really good.
So motor sailing, thumbs up.
I think so, yeah.
The stability of modern cruising cats and their potential for good performance downwind is part of their big appeal. But there are tips and tricks for getting the best out of a cat downwind and also avoiding getting too overpressed. What kind of angles should we be looking at, Nigel, for downwind sailing?
We should go deep, but we should still not sail dead downwind. It's not like racing boats where the speed is so great that you can haul your wind and sail quite aggressive angles and still make best speed downwind. But with this kind of cruising boat, I'd say you just want to come comfortably off the downwind line so that you're not close to a jibe and so on. But I think because of that, you'll probably need, if you're doing any sort of serious sailing, you should have a downwind sail, and it might even be an ordinary traditional striped spinnaker. Probably better to be an asymmetric one, which can be tacked on the windward bow. One sort of step up from the real base boat is to have a little bit of a bowsprit, which allows you to carry that a little closer to the wind, like maybe up to a beam reach, let's say. But by and large, there's no point in thinking you're going to go really fast and sail aggressive angles, so keep going downwind, but avoid the downwind line. You know.
And as far as comfort is concerned, is it true to say that on a cruising cat you can sail much deeper and avoid the rolling that you might get on the monohull?
That's right. I think most monohull sailors sailing in, say, tradewind conditions are actually coming up enough so that they try to avoid that rolling, and it isn't a problem in the Catamaran for sure. So it isn't a constraint.
And what about quartering seas? Is that an issue with cats?
No, they should be able to deal with that even under autopilot. No particular problem. This is quite a traditional main sheet system which they've chosen to put on this boat. Instead of having a track along the deck, the position of the boom is determined by these pair of tackles which are both controlled from the cockpit. It's quite a good idea, less complicated, less to go wrong. And obviously, if you started letting the boom out further now, this one would eventually become redundant. This would swing over the other way and give you a reasonable amount of banging downwards when you're slightly off the wind. When you really go off the wind, you have to put a tackle down to the rail and haul it from there, because you need sometimes to go out quite a lot further than that. And that's the way you still keep the mainsail from twisting too much.
One of the big risks, I guess, with any boat, but particularly multi-hulls, is when the breeze comes up and you're going downwind.
I do think that is it's a really important point, actually. The problem is that you can't reef going downwind, obviously, because the sail is against the shrouds, and it is probably the area that is potentially the most dangerous if you have the kind of conditions where a squall might come out of nowhere, maybe in the middle of the night, and catch you out, and you haven't got the crew to react quickly enough. If that's the situation, and you're on a long passage and you're just family or friends on board, the safe thing to do is to sail downwind with quite a heavily reefed main right from the start. And that means that you can put all you like in the fore triangle or other downwind sails and not worry about it, because we all know that if you get a heavy squall come through, you can ease sheets very easily and you can get out of trouble. The problem is, of course, that to reef you've got to turn around and come back upwind, and you don't want to do that if there's all that wind. And there's a kind of nasty feeling as you go around the corner that the apparent wind's going to increase quickly and you could be in trouble. So I'd say that is one of the most important, in terms of safety, that's one of the most important points about sailing a boat, is never get caught out downwind with an inadequate crew and too much mainsail.
What about jibing, Nigel?
Well, in a race boat, a fast boat, it's really easy, because as you go down through the downwind line, the boat's going fast enough that the apparent wind has almost dropped completely, so it's very easy. On a boat like this, cruising boat, it's kind of similar to a monohull. The only thing is, you're not so conscious that you're sailing by the lee. You don't get a sort of feeling of that awkward feeling of heeling to windward, so you don't get the warning signs. That's quite important, and you have to think about it carefully anyway, because you don't want to be caught out with a crash jibe.
And I guess the loads are pretty high as well on a cat.
They would be high because of the big roach mainsail and so on. Yeah. This bridle arrangement we have on the main sheet on this boat will actually help us in the jibe, because as long as the leeward side one on the old jibe is reasonably near vertical, which it is already actually, is I can more or less leave that, jibe onto it, and then ease it out, and then when we're good and ready we can take up the slack on the new leeward one, on what is the lazy one at the moment. So we might as well go ahead and do that, I think.
Ready for me to come down?
Yep.
Okay, coming down.
I'll just take a little more slack as it comes over. There we are. Now I can just pay it out, take a turn off the winch to make it easier. Pay it out this side. Now the boom will be riding up in the air now, but that doesn't really matter. When I've finished with this one, I'll lock that off and then take up the slack on the new leeward side sheet. Now I can put a little bit of heft into that and then finally let go the one on the old windward side. There we are. And that's it, more or less.
When the sea state starts to get a bit bigger, what are we looking for then? I mean, are we still pressing on?
I think the boat will take it, but it's obvious that if it's banging and bumping around, people will be getting uncomfortable below. We're not racing. Do something about it. In extremis, I think it would probably be best if you're trying to make a course up to windward, probably to start motor sailing, shorten the sail right down, point up well high and motor sail. That way you can control the speed a bit too, and if it's still too bumpy, you can flatten off, take some revs off the engine and just do whatever's comfortable.
I suppose the problem is if you bear off a little bit and go faster, then you've got another
I think
problem.
so. Oh yeah, that's right. And also, I'm assuming you're trying to get upwind, so I think in those cases motor sailing would be a good thing to do.
Given that cats are that much more stable than monohulls, how do you know when you should be reefing?
I think on the wind, with a cruising boat like this, you'll feel that actually the sails no longer look good. You run out of power, and so that's almost the easiest time to tell when you're overpressed. And the boat will definitely sail better and faster if the sail is reduced to the point where you can sheet things properly. Off the wind, not so easy because the sails are not so flat anyway and the winches aren't being overworked. But generally, I think if you're getting overpushed, particularly if there's a seaway, you might begin to see bits of spray off the leeward bow and things. And probably the general posture of the boat, maybe the difficulty of steering and things will be telling you that you're overcooking it a bit. Yeah. The difficulty is off the wind is that you know that if you're going to reef, you've got to stop and turn around. And nobody really likes to do that, so they put it off. And that is a bit of a pitfall. I mean, in fairly stable weather, it's not necessarily a dangerous thing. But going back to this thing we've discussed quite a lot, which is the only time you're getting in real danger is the vicious squall. And so, again, the rule is, say, yeah, let's shorten sail and do it now and do what we've proven works pretty well. And then back on your way again and more relaxed, so.
And it's quite common on many boats to actually end up sailing faster with actually less sail than you would have thought. Is that the same?
Certainly on the wind, yeah. I think things like helm balancing better and sails shaped better, because obviously on a cruising boat you haven't got racing sails and the power isn't there, and you soon see the difference. Yeah.
In a situation where you're conscious of the breeze coming up and there's potential for it to get quite windy, is there a really the safest option of all that will give you the most options?
Yeah, I definitely taking the mainsail down.
Right.
It's got obviously lots going for it. First of all, we can't spill wind from the mainsail downwind, so that can be a little scary, particularly as we've spoken about very heavy squalls. That actually is an actual danger zone. But certainly for comfort and ease of handling, just take it down, go downwind on the headsail. The other nice thing is that the headsail's pulling the boat along where the mainsail is pushing it along, and the steering is a lot easier if the drive is coming from the front of the boat. It's actually being towed downwind, which is nice.
If we found ourselves in a situation where we were going downwind and the breeze had built up to the point that we couldn't reef but we knew we needed to, I presume the only way to get the main down was to spin up into the breeze.
Absolutely, and as quickly as possible, I think. A short the time it takes, the less time the mainsail is pulling hard. We want to get right up and empty the wind from it. So to do that, first of all, we start the engine. I'm starting the leeward engine, so as we come up, the leeward engine will be stopping or falling off again. Now we need to flake the mainsail down, the main halyard down, so we know it's absolutely free to run. And then we've got to roll up the headsail, probably about half or 2/3 of it up.
Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to pull the headsail up?
Well, we don't want too much power from it, the risk of it clogging and so on, so that's fine. I think that's enough. It's lovely.
Will that help us when we're heading up?
Yes, we probably should have that reasonably hard sheeted, so we'll just take a little bit on there. That's it, and now we're free to come up.
Okay.
And then we've got to bang this halyard off, making sure we don't get caught in the fall of it. We want it to come down quite quickly. I think that's about it there really now. That's pretty good. How much is left?
That's down to pretty much most of it down to
Okay, so they're away now. Now we can, when we start to move again, we can unroll the headsail again.
So I guess the advantage in, see you drop the entire main down, but I guess the advantage of that is that now we're just down to the headsail.
Yes,
we can just concentrate on how much sail area we want there.
The conditions today are obviously fairly benign, but I'm assuming that we're in almost an emergency situation, but we've got to get that sail off. We can see a big black line score coming up and we want it down. That's really what we're doing. And now we're down to a safe mode again, because we've only got sail in the forward side of the mast, and if whatever wind comes along, we can always empty that sail if we want to. So it's kind of a safe mode.
And the whole operation has taken us just a couple of minutes. But I guess the key to it really was in the planning and the preparation, and you cannot afford to have a situation where something gets jammed or doesn't run properly.
That's right, and anticipation of the need to do it is paramount to the whole thing.